I'm Christine Conrad, and you're listening to another episode of Innovative Tac-Tips, where I interview industry leaders all across different industries on basically how do they become the leader that they are today to give you, the listeners, practical insights on how you can apply it to your life and inspire you to follow your dreams and accomplish your goals. And I'm with Holly Hunt. I want to make sure like the B, because there's always a B. So I'm like, Holly B Hunt, Holly B. And so I'm with you. And you, before I tell more listeners about you, what do you do? And what makes your heart sing? I guess in the industry, or what you do, like what do you do in your career?
Awesome. Well, first, thank you for having me, Christine. As I was seeing our names on here, H double K. So
Yeah.
really excited to be on the podcast today and have a conversation with you. I feel like we have a lot of synergies. So looking forward to the conversation. So what do I do? So that's recently changed. I am now running the indirect channel program for Cypher. So I'm the VP of Channel Sales for the East. Started that a few weeks ago, and very excited to launch into this new career and into an exciting part of the industry. I think security is a hot topic right now, and all of the businesses are trying to make sure they're secure. And there's so many, we see attacks constantly in the news. So I'm excited to be on the good side and help customers protect their business assets. So that's new again, like I said. And I guess what makes my heart sing. So I have to say, I've been in the telecom sales, operations, management side of the business for almost 20 years now. And, I've really found, I thought, my passion in the indirect channel. I've only been in the indirect channel for about 4 years now, but I really love the relationship piece. I know it sounds cliche, but I really do enjoy getting to know people, connecting people, building relationships, and finding out how I can, again, as I mentioned with the security piece, right, help people protect their businesses, help our trusted advisors, our sub agents and partners be better consultants to their end user customers. So I just really love that relationship management, I guess you would call it, partnership development. And so I don't think I'll ever leave the channel.
No, I think when you can add value or you can be like the integrator, right, between all the moving parts, I think that's a big thing because a lot of the times people are so focused on whatever scope of work that they're on, and sometimes they'll have blinders. And for someone who can basically triage, I'll use
Yep.
triage like situations and relationships, I think that's a huge benefit because it's you never know what you need until something arises. And so for you to be able to think quick on your feet and to help those partners and did you say sub partners? I want to make sure sub partners, partners, sub
Yeah,
agents. Okay.
we keep changing our names, but sub agents, partners, some call them trusted advisors, consultants, but yeah, just helping them and helping them to be knowledgeable of what the products that I'm representing, can bring into that community. So it's just interesting. I enjoy getting to know people, getting to meet people, and I get to do a lot of that in my current role. I prefer to do it in person, but of course, I think since 2020, we've all gotten pretty comfortable from behind the screen as well. So.
Yeah. And what do they say? Nobody's can be somebody's overnight. So just, I mean, especially in this market, things can be changed in an instant. So it's always good for you
Yep.
to stay and keep everyone in the know. I think that's huge.
Yep.
I will say I did a little bit of homework. I like to do a little bit of homework, right? Before I interview my guests, before we hit record. So I noticed that you were at AT&T, and were you ever, and again, college football started on Saturday. Georgia
Yes.
Tech played Florida. I want to say Florida State, but I'm also
You got it.
like, okay, cool. I'm like also like still learning because when I went to college, it wasn't a traditional college experience. So like I didn't really have a college team. So I'm like kind of like, you know, kind of playing the field on which team to pick. I haven't,
Hey,
LSU's
I've
up
got a
there, but again,
suggestion for you. Just a
yeah.
little back there, and actually my water
Oh
cup.
yeah. Oh yeah. Oh
You want
yeah.
to
The
come to the winning
Bulldogs. Yeah.
side.
I know. That's on my list. The SEC going to games down there. That's on. It's just like the atmosphere and just it's just like a different world. And I worked for the Vikings for 5 years, and I worked the Super Bowl, and just like the sound and just like the energy that's in those stadiums when like a Hail Mary pass happens and you like win it just like gives you the goosebumps. I'm getting the
Oh,
goosebumps right
oh,
now just because of
100%.
it.
Yep.
Yeah, it's
Oh,
just
agreed.
crazy.
It is.
So
The
being at
energy's
18, yeah.
electrifying for sure.
Well, at AT&T, did you ever, because they have a lot of partnerships, right? Did you ever like, were you able to, were you in Georgia for AT&T? Like, I guess walk me, basically I want to know, like, how did you become the Holly you are today from starting at AT&T to now? And I guess with that, I believe failure is like giving up, throwing in the towel. Was there anything, uh, I guess like we can use a football analogy, right? We could probably use that all during the episode is like the clock, like the basically that game doesn't end until the clock hits zero.
Mhm.
Was there anything within your tenure so far of your career that you thought was a failure that later set you up for success?
100%. And at the time, you don't see it, right? But hindsight is 2020. So I'll give you kind of the bird's eye view. I started with Singular Wireless. So I'm dating myself a little bit because they're no longer around. Back in 2005, and then went to AT&T from there. So that time was spent in Atlanta, Georgia, and then transitioned. I actually went to Windstream after that, and that was in Atlanta as well. That's where I get my southern accent. I'm a Georgia girl, and then moved down to Miami, Florida, back in 2012, and started working for Comcast Business. So throughout that time, of course, now in the channel program for now 4 years, and recently moved to Cypher. But yeah, 100%. I think at the time, it's funny. I posted a video on my own personal blog not too long ago about how it's not rejection, it's redirection, and that's something I wish I had embodied and realized earlier on in my career, because there were times that I interviewed for promotions or applied for opportunities that I didn't get, right? And unfortunately sometimes the feedback was, hey Holly, like you were great, there was just someone a little better. I didn't really get good concrete actionable feedback I could use to work on. So that was frustrating, right? Because it was like, well, how do I just get that much better to get the opportunities? But when I look back, it's funny, when you see someone's resume, it's only the opportunities that they secured, right? It's the roles they've worked, and you don't really see the gaps or the little spots in between there of, hey, interviewed for this job and didn't get it. But I think that tells the bigger story, because there were times that I didn't get something, and sometimes it was heartbreaking, and I was in a bad mental headspace for a while, and then I ended up getting an even better opportunity, but it maybe didn't come for 4, 5, 6 months, maybe 12 months, maybe even a couple of years later. But I knew if I'd gotten that initial opportunity I interviewed for, that subsequent opportunity never would have presented itself, or I wouldn't have been in the right place at the right time. So it's easy. It's easier than it sounds, of course. If you don't get a promotion or you don't get an opportunity that you really wanted, it can be discouraging at the time and frustrating. But I've coached people, and I've had to coach myself that, what, Holly, it's not rejection. It's redirection to a better opportunity. You just have to be patient, keep your head down, keep doing what you're doing, and know that that right opportunity is going to come into your path at the right time.
Yeah. And with that, I guess like when you're kind of in a bad headspace, because again, I'm a big advocate for mental health because like you just like your mind can go into different directions that you don't like that you like sometimes are like, wait, I'm spiraling, like come back to planet Earth. Like we're here, like let's not go down that direction. When you feel overwhelmed, and just like you can't gain traction on just like focusing, what do you do? Is there any like things that you do on a daily basis or monthly basis? Is like how do you like when you don't get something and you feel overwhelmed, like is there anything that you do to come back to that mental strength of like, nope, it's redirection, we're moving it the other direction basically?
Yeah, no, absolutely. So this is something I implemented in 2020, when everything was overwhelming, right? And
Yeah.
everybody, we were all, I think, in it's confusing, a scary time, and just really didn't know, what was next, what was around the corner. It was terrifying to turn on the news, right? 'Cause you didn't know what crazy
Hmm.
thing was happening that day. And, it was a lot of uncertainty. And so how I
Hmm.
felt like I really would always focus each day was in my morning ritual. So I like to say that the first hour of the day, how I start my day sets the tone for the rest of the day. So it didn't always look the exact same, but some combination of right journaling. So journaling or reading a devotion, something where I was, and usually a little bit of both, but something where I was really reflecting, trying to reflect on positives. So forcing myself, like, what are three good things that happened yesterday? What are three things I'm looking forward to? And I actually have all this detailed out on my blog, hollybhunt.com. I did a blog about this where I wrote the things that I was focusing on at the time, but it was, letting go of the things you can't control, but also focusing on the positive things that are going on in your life because that helps redirect your energy. And then I also would write down three people I wanted to contact. That little piece that you think, okay, that's okay, three people I'll contact. But that I feel like sometimes made the biggest impression and impact on my day. Because I would randomly just think of three people. Maybe I would go through Facebook and
Mhm.
scroll through my friend list and just choose, I'm going to message these three people. And it was something as simple as, hey, you popped in my mind, just want to say hello, hope you're doing well. And the feedback I got from those people, and knowing I was having a positive impact on them, that it made them smile, maybe they were going through something I didn't even realize. I feel like
Mhm.
sometimes bringing other people joy, and that also helps you take the focus over maybe what you're overwhelmed by, frustrated by. But knowing that you can have that impact on someone else with something as simple as a text, really, it gave me more energy to want to do more of that, right? And I
Mhm.
would tell people, like, go out and put more good energy out into the universe. It all comes back to you. And I think I just always
Mhm.
have tried to strive to have that positive mindset, so that even if I was frustrated by something or overwhelmed or disappointed, I tried to always focus my energy to something positive, making other people smile. Again, reflecting on positive things that are going on in my life. So a lot of it is just is
Mhm.
small mental tweaks. It wasn't some complete overhaul, but
Mhm.
refocusing your energy to something positive can literally change the trajectory of your day.
Yeah, and I guess with that, the question I love to ask is, has there been anything like that you've done doing those things that has impacted someone's life that you never expected? Because usually, like, doing those things, but then there's like some people that you're like, oh my gosh, they or I don't want to say mean, but it's like sometimes you don't have that chemistry with someone, and like you'll do something that's kindness, and you're like, whoa, I did not ever expect that reaction, right? Because when you put something out, like sometimes you're like, okay, well, I can't control the reaction. Was there anything that had happened that you're like flabbergasted that you're like, oh, I had no idea that I impacted them in that way?
Yeah, I'm pretty vulnerable. I've seen a lot of times I would post things, and it was the things that always was most nervous to post. Maybe just again being completely authentic, raw, vulnerable, or sharing something I was experiencing personally. The messages I get, and different things. Maybe I think one of them was similar to the question you asked prior, something about just being disappointed and frustrated. I remember the time in my life it was something professionally, but I posted about or changing my mindset and focusing on the positives and reminding myself that I'm a badass. Like, it was kind of a empowering message, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I'll never forget the messages I got. That people were just like, "You don't know the impact this has had on me. Like, I needed to see this today." And it was always sometimes, to your point, the people you didn't realize were even watching. Because I did post on LinkedIn, I post on Instagram, Facebook. I have different platforms, that I like to share these type of things. But it further, I feel like, motivates me to be vulnerable. I was scared to begin with, and I've even had people to tell me, Holly, like, I admire you because I'm scared to sometimes be that open about stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But I
Yeah.
think because I saw it was impacting people, I started not worrying about what people would think. I got over
Mm-hmm.
that. I tried to think, what, Holly, who cares if people think, or people are like, why did she share that? Or, oh my God, like,
Mm-hmm.
the
Mm-hmm.
people that I was inspiring and that said, hey, like, I was going through something
Mm-hmm.
really bad. I saw this just at the right time. It helped me
Mm-hmm.
reframe, what I'm going through or whatever it may be. That
Mm-hmm.
motivates me to continue posting, because if I can help that one person, or those several people, and people are shooting me the messages reaffirming that,
Mm-hmm.
it further motivates me to keep going. Because at the end of the day, like, we're all going through this thing called life together, right? Let's help each other out.
Yeah.
You never
Mhm.
truly do understand sometimes the impact a few kind words or a vulnerable post, can have on someone's life.
Totally, 100%. I did notice, from your blog, there was a couple authors that I am actually reading actually reading some of their books now, for this month. Was there any, I guess, books or book that had a major influence on your life? And then is there any books that you give away most as a gift?
Yeah, so I don't unfortunately read as much as I should. I wish I could set aside more time, but I know I wish it. We're never going to get more than 24 hours. I've just got to prioritize it. But I do love to read. John Maxwell is one you probably see throughout my website. He's definitely one of my favorite authors. I'm reading High Road Leadership right now. It's one of his newer books, and it was gifted to me from a good friend of mine who is one of his executive coaches for my birthday. So I'm about halfway through that one. I've read some of his other books as well. I would say the one that I recommend the most that was the most life impacting for me at the time was a book called Fierce Conversations by Susan Scott. I mentioned I moved to Miami, started working for Comcast Business, and I took on my first sales leadership role. And I was new. It was my first time managing a team of salespeople. And, as much as I like to think I was good at communicating and I'm in sales, so of course I know how to communicate. I was a terrible leader. I didn't really understand what it meant to lead. I just really was managing, right? Managing to a sales number. And I really needed to kind of take a step back and learn how to craft better, my messages better, how to have sometimes the difficult conversations with my sales teams, but do them in a more productive way, take some of the emotion out. And it really taught me how to plan conversations out and not just show up for a difficult conversation that may be about, that their performance was down. And, sometimes those were sometimes bordering on the HR where I had to pull them into the conversation. But it taught me how to better plan conversations. Don't just show up and start having it, right? What are the points you want to cover? What
Mhm.
is your end goal? And so I sat down and really started planning out these conversations. And then I started doing the same with my presentations, right? And so just learning how to, again, communicate better, but being more thoughtful and deliberate in my approach versus just, showing up and thinking it would happen and be a productive, fruitful conversation. So I
Yeah.
recommend it to anyone that just wants to be a better communicator, but in particular, people that are in positions of leadership where you may have to have uncomfortable conversations or difficult conversations. And really, it helps you to think through them and kind of, I said, plan it out in the simplest terms so that you are, better equipped to get your message across, and reach the other person. It talks about how, how does that person receive messages? And we all receive messages differently. Some people I could be very direct. Hey, here's what I need from you. Like, here's what it is. And they would say, got it, boss, go do it. And some I had to really have more of a coaching and take more of a gentler approach, not be so direct, so that it looked more of a collaboration. I don't know, very interesting. And just when you start thinking about the way people receive messages, not just the way you deliver them.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, communication is everything. Being a marketing comms major in college, nonverbal was so interesting to me because nonverbal is what, like 80% of like how you communicate. And then with being
Mhm.
remote and virtual, you're like, okay, I think I'm reading the room. I think I'm understanding and then it's like if they have a good poker face, you're like, all right, how did that go? I'm pretty sure it felt good, but I'm not quite sure on the other end that it feels good. So yeah, I mean, and people who, I mean, for me, it's like I want to perform, and so if I have bad numbers, I'm harder on myself than anyone else could be. So going into a conversation with someone like that, you have to be like, okay, let's tread this lightly because she probably beat herself up like
Um,
just before we connected, right? You have to like also have that in the back of your mind. So that those yeah, and to your point, like I think when I was younger, I was like, I'll just wing it, and it's like, no, I don't think you should wing. Like, just like you should have a game plan and have certain plays in your brain of like, okay, well, if that doesn't go well, we're gonna go with this play. Anyways, all that stuff. I think that that's so important. Um, with I guess leadership because I do think leadership isn't a title. It's not a title. I think there's people
mhm.
that have leadership
Agree.
roles that you're like, well, you should probably go find your happiness elsewhere. Um, is there any advice that you've heard that you'd probably recommend not like if someone was hearing it that like maybe they should take a step back and like consider what the person's saying like through the industry? Have you heard any like things that people have said throughout the years that you're like, if you hear this, maybe like reconsider your sources and like check, is there any like is there like a I guess a common theme with that? Even
Yeah.
career industry.
Yeah. So this is funny because I used to believe this, and now I am against this way of thinking. It's fake it till you make it. And I used to think, and I think that maybe of just because I've typically in a lot of settings I've been in, been one of the younger ones and one of the only females, just in a, male dominated industry. And someone, that's just kind of a thing, fake it till you make it. And I think I always used to like say that, like, I'm just going to fake it till I make it. And the older, maybe I would like to think wiser that I've gotten, it's like, no, I think I'm confident enough that if I don't know the answer to something, I don't pretend I do. And I don't try to, I guess wordsmith my way around stuff and make people think that I do. I'll just say, you know what, that's a great question. Let me get back to you. I'll get that answer for you. And especially given the fact I'm in a new role, right? Because I don't know
Mhm.
everything. I'm never going to know
Mhm.
everything, but definitely where I'm
Mhm.
at right now, I know I don't know enough, but I'm comfortable saying that and saying, look, I'm still learning, still, uh, figuring all of this out, but I'll be happy to get back to you. And I've realized no one thought less of me when I said that. No one thought, oh, I can't believe she doesn't know this. So I think sometimes just being honest and authentic is better than that fake it till you make it. I'm sure
Mhm.
there's maybe some scenarios where fake it until you make it could be okay. But I think overall, I used to think like pretending I knew stuff and not just
Mhm.
being honest and authentic
Mhm.
it's actually better. Just people, I think, have appreciated the vulnerability. I wasn't
Yeah.
comfortable like that for a while, but I think as I get older and I'm a little more confident that, you know what, it is what it is. And just because I pretend I know something doesn't mean, that I'm going to fool them either. And I think people appreciate and respect the honesty.
Yeah, humility. I think people you could be like the smartest person in the room, but if you're not if you're a little arrogant, I don't think people want to do business with you. So I think the
Yep.
humility piece, I think people appreciate the humanness of that. Cause again, at the end of the day, it's like we're all here to help each other. And yeah, I will say being the young person in the room, you feel like you have like you have to fill these shoes or you have to like and it just I feel that pressure. I know what that pressure feels like and you're like it's almost like you're trying to one be yourself, right? Be genuine, but also like okay, well I have to rise to the occasion. But at the end of the day, it's like you don't have to overcompensate because I think a lot of times people do that. They overcompensate and you're like, okay, I can see right through you. I appreciate your time. I'm gonna go to someone else. Thank you. Like thank you, but no thank you. See you later. So I
Right.
totally understand that. With that, I guess kind of adds to it. What advice would you give yourself, your younger self, when you after you graduated from Georgia? What advice would you give yourself before you stepped on to like the first recruiter interview? What piece of advice would you give yourself?
So I think, which I did do this when I was younger, and I think I've gotten more apprehensive as I've gotten older. But I would say, just in the most simplest terms, go for it. And what I mean by that is, I feel like maybe initially out of school, like, you don't really know what you don't know. Maybe you like a little confidence because do I really, have what I need for this role, or because you're new to the professional world. So it's, I worked throughout college. I put myself through school. So I have always had a work ethic. I've always worked. But then when it got into like the real world job now, it's like, okay, do I have the minimum qualifications to even like apply for this job? Right. It was like, I've heard this stat before, and I think it's sometimes related to females more than males, that uh, they will only apply for jobs they feel like they meet like 75, 80, maybe even 100% of the requirements of, whereas a male will tend to apply if he thinks he meets 50% of the requirements. So I think there were times that I was like, I don't know if I'm qualified enough for that I wish I just had the courage to do it, right? Because what's the worst that can happen? You get told no, right? We fear rejection and failure so much we don't try. And I
Mm-hmm.
think professionally, that I wish I had maybe learned that and embodied it and lived it earlier on. I will say that I did, ironically, my biggest, boldest moment was quitting my job. I was working for Windstream at the time, but quitting my job and moving to South Beach. I found a roommate on Craigslist, and just said, I'm moving. Like, I want to live at the beach and I'll
Mm-hmm.
find a career down there. I thought I was getting on a telecom. Silly me. I got back in quickly. But, I think things like that, when I look back at the different inflection points and pivotal moments in my career and then even in my personal life, the moments where I still took calculated risks to an extent, but kind of threw caution to the wind and said, you know what? Sometimes you have to jump. I think the older I get, I take more calculated risk. I'm not as quick to just jump on something. I do a little more research before I go for it. But I think I always had this like spirit of what's the worst that can happen, right? And if you can live with that, you got to make that jump. You got to take that chance because you don't always get those opportunities, and you got to recognize them when they come by and grab the bull by the horns and go for it if it's something you feel good about. And the worst case that happens is it doesn't work out, but you learn a lesson, right? And you go forward a little bit wiser. I just don't believe there's failures. There's just opportunities to learn. And I wish I had known that piece, or
Mhm.
at least lived it maybe a little more earlier on.
Yeah. I have a similarity. I put myself through college. I worked 3 service, like I was server for 2 restaurants and then a bartender. I put my way through college, and so I was always like social butterfly, learning from people, but I think imposter syndrome is real. Like
Yep.
we convince ourselves that we're not worthy or we're not capable of doing something, but at the end of the day it's like I look back on it, I'm like, I was psycho. Like I just like I was like doing 3 jobs and putting like going to full-time school and still like, I was just like, what? Like how did I anyways, I'm like, how did I manage to do that? And you're like, okay, that's
We become
interesting. Let's
professional multitaskers
yeah, I'm like,
early
oh my
on.
gosh, yeah, and now I'm like, when people are like, oh, can you do 3 different things? I'm like, whoa. But now, I mean, obviously, I'm kidding. I can multitask still, but I'm like, now I'm a little like, okay, I don't have to do that anymore. But yeah, no, I think to your point, it's like look at the role, see, and at the end of the day, some of those like bullet points they just put there because they assume that that's part of the role, but really like the role could evolve to something else. Like it could be
Mhm.
evolved to different things or different necessities in the company. And I just, to your point, it's like I think we tend to get a little gun shy of like, okay, well, I don't think I can do it. And it's yeah, just say yes. Like again, making sure that it's aligning with whatever you want to do, but also to your point of like your career is not linear. Like there's times that you have to take a step back to take 2 steps forward and all that stuff. And I think people need to realize that, like, just because my sister, for example, I'd called her out on another podcast and she's like, can't believe you name dropped me. And I was like, well, I didn't say your full name, but she got a degree in psychology, but she is a project manager for Target Corporation. She never thought she would be where she's at today. She majored in psychology. So you never know what opportunities are going to be presented. And you just have to, like, I guess, grab the bull by the horns in a sense. I was trying to think of a
Yep.
football analogy with that. But then I was like, I don't really know how I go to the
Mhm.
end zone, just run to the anyways. Be open. I don't know. Be open. I'm just like wide receiver. I'm not anyways. I was just trying to think of like a player of what would be in the end zone. But all right. I'm like I have so many other questions. So I love to ask this question. If you had a billboard that reached billions of people worldwide, what would you put on it? It could be emoji, it could be a word, it could be a phrase, it could be a novel, it could be really anything.
Hmm. That's a good one. Could I change it out every week?
You could
I've
change it
got
every
so
like
many like
yeah,
little quotes
yeah,
and
yeah, every quarter you could change it up. I mean, you could
okay,
do
okay, awesome.
yeah.
I think all of mine, and you'll see this again in I put a lot of this on LinkedIn because I like people to know who I am personally as well, not just the professional side. And on my website, and that's probably what I like about Instagram is I can put that billboard up daily if I want to. I wish I had the time for that, but at least I'll kind of every week or so try to throw up a new word image, right, with a quote or something. Anything I feel in the vein of like going for it, saying yes, but also kind of having that sassy edge. I think I posted something the other day. It said, prove them wrong. But then I posted a few days later, I said, it's not just about proving them wrong, prove yourself right. Because when I
Mm-hmm.
do post things, I do like to post the word, but then I like to kind of elaborate on it in the comments, or, in the little section below. So
Mm-hmm.
anything that I feel like it changes because it kind of depends on a lot of times what I'm going through in my life at the time or something that's top of mind, something I'm feeling. And I think, you know what, if I'm going through this and this is something this on my mind, and it's definitely somebody else is being impacted, right? So I'll put
Mm-hmm.
something out. Like I said, I'll usually do it on Instagram and my Facebook for Holly B Hunt. But I think it's just all about carpe diem, being bold, living boldly. That's how I've how I live my life, how I want other people to do. I try to always motivate people to take chances, again, calculated risk, but
Mhm.
just not to sit on the sidelines. I feel like so many people um, are alive, but they're not living. And I see so
Mhm.
many people that are scared to do this, and they can make every excuse in the world not to do something just because, again, the fear of failure, the fear of um, not, what people are going to think. And I think just
Mhm.
being able to kind of like take that away, I don't care what people think. You know what people are going to think, they're going to talk. But at the end of the day, we have to look ourselves in the mirror and be honest with ourselves. And we have to say, are
Mhm.
we living the life we truly want to live? Are we living the life that we feel like we were created for? If we
Mhm.
can do that go to bed at night with that level, that, feeling of satisfaction, then that's what I think we all should strive for is living our true self, living our true life. That when we,
Mhm.
unfortunately, hopefully we do live to a long age and we're laying on our deathbed, that we don't sit there and rattle off all the things we wish we had done, right? The things you wish you had done,
Yeah.
find a way to do them now.
Yeah. Yeah, what is, like, the what ifs? Like, don't think about, like, just do it if you're thinking about, like, I mean, obviously, make sure it's not illegal, like, for sure, like, if
Right?
it's against law, please don't do that. Please don't do please don't do that,
Unethical,
'cause
illegal. There's
yeah,
some
don't do
things I
that.
would say, yeah,
Yeah.
that's extra
Yeah.
calculated. Make sure they make sense.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I think I always like, I have conversations with people. I'll coach at times. So I've done some mentoring and stuff. And,
Mhm.
I encourage people, like, if you feel like you want, and like you said, a lot of times it's a career change, and that's what's scary. They're going into a whole different area. They're like, but
Yeah.
I've been doing XYZ for so long, but I really want to be a realtor, or whatever it is.
Mhm.
And I'm like, well, okay, write down the pros and cons. Again, I mean,
Mhm.
spend some time thinking through it. Does it make financial sense? Like, if
Mhm.
you got, safety net put up in case it doesn't work out and you go back to what you were doing. But I think
Mhm.
fear, what do they say? Everything you want is on the other side of fear. So it's just, hey,
Oh,
leave your
yeah,
comfort zone and
yeah.
go for it.
Yeah, it's a story that you tell yourself, because I think with people, especially when they're early, like, in, I would say, what, earlier 20s, it's like asking executives questions. Normally, like, they want to be asked questions, right? Like, they're not this
Mhm.
light fixture. Go ask them a question. Go, like ask, learn, like, grow, like, be a sponge. I think at the end of the day, people are like, well, what if they don't respond? It's like, okay, cool, like, not your circus, not your monkeys, move on to the next
Yeah.
person, ask the other person, right? Like, it's like, at the end of the day, it's like, I think we think in our head, like, oh my gosh, they're looking at us in a certain way. If they are, then it's like, well, they should probably go heal. But at the end of the day, it's usually not about you. It's usually about their insecurities, or whatever. Or they might be busy, right? Like,
Yep.
we get busy, and yeah, I think throw the Hail Mary, right?
Yep.
Just go for the end zone. I
Yep.
think that's a big thing. Yeah. What ifs? Yeah. I think if you can live a limitless life, I think that you'll be in a really good shape. Yeah, I agree with you on that, because I think people tend to they polarize. They're like, oh my
Mhm.
gosh, and especially social media too, because it's like, what if they judge me? And again, I get that in a sense. Sometimes when I post things, I'm like, oh, how's this gonna be conveyed? But then I'm like, okay, is there any swear words? No. Okay. Am I, like, bullying anyone? No. Like, you just have to, like, go through your brain again. Like, is this with good intentions? Yes. And then you never know who you're going to interact. And anyways, to your point, like, there's people that watch you that you had no idea watched you. So,
Yep.
um, I guess maybe one or two last questions. Is there anything that's coming up that you're working on that people can, like, see you live, or maybe see you again virtually? Is there anything that you're any behind the scenes stuff that going on?
Yeah. So, ironically, right now there is. I was looking for some things to pop up. I did used to do a lot of speaking engagements virtually during COVID, because of course we're all stuck behind our screens. So was did a lot of webinars. But I will be speaking at the MSP Summit in Atlanta. So mid September, September 17th. I'll be speaking on a panel about, I think it's 10 strategies for growing your career, elevating your career. So we'll hopefully have some good nuggets of wisdom to share there. And it's the women's conference during the MSP Summit. And then again, I'll be moderating, so I won't really be in a speaking capacity, but I will be moderating, as I mentioned earlier, John Maxwell. someone I admire, and my friend that is a executive coach for him. She's hosting a Live to Lead um, conference down here in Pompano Beach, Florida, where I live. And I'll be co-moderating that with her this year. So we have a lot of awesome in-person speakers, and then there'll be some virtual speakers as well. So I did it last year. It's about a little over a half day. I think it's like a 10 to 4, maybe the exact time. But I'll be moderating that on October 6th, or actually 4th this year. It was the 6th last year, October 4th, here in Pompano Beach, Florida. It's also available virtually for anyone who's interested. And then, you know what? Our conversation is motivating me. I was thinking, I've really got to, after I'm referencing my website, I need to get some new content up. So you're motivating me to get out from behind the scenes and do some more posting and getting some, like I said, some positive sound bites and thoughts and energy out in the universe. So
Oh, cool. Sweet. And is there any way that people can get in contact with you directly, like any other, besides your website, is there anything like if they want to learn more about just like use you as a sounding board, or just like if there's any questions about the industry that you're in now or anything in the channel, how can they get in contact with you?
yeah, absolutely. So I'd say LinkedIn's probably the best way to find me. As you said earlier, Holly B Hunt. And so that's probably the best way. Shoot me a DM, connect with me there. And then, as I mentioned, also, I think there's a contact us form on my website that you could reach out to me as well on hollybhunt.com. So either way, I'll get the email, and yeah, would love to connect with anyone. Anything I've spoken about that's resonated with you, any questions, either professionally, personally, love expanding my network. So would love to hear from anyone.
Sounds good. Well, thank you so much for your time, Holly.
Thank you. Have a good one.